Welcome back and good morning. So for anyone that hasn't seen this thing before, this is a Mk5 Escort sat down on top of an Audi S3 chassis. If you haven't watched any previous episodes, go and check them out because we have started metalwork. All the inner, outer and middle seals have just been done, both sides. Made new inner pieces to go between the front inner wheel arch of the Audi and the A-post of the Escort, and we have done the inner tubs. So next up is going to be strip the car down, get all of this clobber out, all the back end, all the diff, all the arms and fuel tank, exhaust, all that malarkey, get all the prop out, get all the engine out, gearbox, front subframe, basically strip the car down so it's more or less a bare shell. So once that's done, we can strip all the underseal off this thing and set about basically patching more of the car together really. So what we do need to do is figure out how to get that to bolt on. This is my rollover jig. Now these are somewhat universal in terms of like the main A-frame. Obviously I need to come off of these mounting points and fix them to my car somehow, some way. Now as I showed on a previous, well on the last episode even, I have got a gap between the Audi and the Escort, so I can't use the usual spot that you'd go to, which is the bumper mounting points, because obviously all I'm going to be holding is the quite flimsy back panel of the Escort. Although this panel could do with being changed, so I might actually just cut that out and just slot something through into the Audi chassis legs. I don't know, it's very much a play it by ear scenario and see how we get on really. So I think what we need to do is get some tools out, spin the car around so the engine's up front up here, so I can actually get a engine hoist to it, and start stripping this thing down. And then roll it over and see what delights I've left for myself with doing all the seals and whatnot. So, clean the car up. All my junk from doing the seals is still in the car. Still crap everywhere. Clean all that up, spin the car around, start taking things apart I guess. See what happens. And just like that, she's spun round, back on all four wheels and ready to be dissected that little bit more. So like I say, all the engine's got to come out. That's probably going to be the next step. And obviously like I said before, the front chassis legs actually stick out quite a way, so I can use them to bolt onto my jig over there. But before I do that, I need to figure out what the hell I'm actually going to put this thing on when I take everything off the car. I think I might just use the little chassis rail underneath there. I don't even know if you can see that. So obviously once everything's off, I still need to be able to hold the car off the floor until I've made that thing fit on it. So once I've devised a plan for that, I'll pick you back up when I'm ready to start getting the spanners out and start dismantling. There we have it, axle stands in place. I mean that's not ideal where that's located at the moment, but I can't get to the chassis leg to actually support it properly. So for the minute I have to go for a bit of a ghetto style. Pop the jack underneath as well just to make absolutely sure it's not going to go anywhere. But that's the back ones. For the front ones we are actually on the front chassis leg, so that's ideal. So there's a bit of rust there, as you can see, the big hole. Bit of rust there, but that all needs to be cut out anyway to make my new sections of floor, so that's all cool. We need to get the catalytic converter out, well the inside exhaust out, and yeah, pretty much everything I've already told you really. But I've got no idea where the hell I'm meant to put all this stuff. as you can see, we've still got the mill here. If you're a long-term subscriber, then you'll know that this thing should have got moved months ago, but it still hasn't. It's still there. So I need to find a spot for all the front subframe, wheels, rear subframe, fuel tank, engine, gearbox. Well, even the doors really. I need to take the doors back off. Got the boot lid over there. That's probably going to go on the Cosy Rep now. I'm probably going to go for a carbon fibre or fiberglass boot lid for weight reductions. Engine can go straight on an engine stand because I need to start dismantling that and figure out what I'm going to do with that. Yeah, so enough rambling. Take the wheels off and we'll just start dismantling this car really. See where we end up. Well, there we go. Wheels are off, lifted up in the air, bosh, ready to rock and roll. However, I didn't bring my baggies. So because this is obviously an Audi, I've never really worked on Audis before, so I don't know where nuts and bolts go. So things like that, if I take that out and it just goes in a pot, I probably won't ever know where it's meant to go back to. Whereas an Escort, I've had so many of these damn things, I could probably tell you what bolt and screw goes where just off a picture. So yeah, I'll come down here tomorrow, armed with some baggies. I'll also bring my engine crane down here as well, because John's is currently holding up an engine. So yeah, for tonight, that's going to do me, unfortunately. So I'm going to go home, go to bed, and I'll pick you back up hopefully tomorrow, if all goes well. We shall see. And welcome back, it's Monday. So we have come armed with my little baggy things for all the little nuts and bolts and what have you. Probably a little bit too small by all accounts, but we'll see how we get on. So this evening I think I'm mainly going to focus on the engine. So what I'll do is I'll get the silly things off first, like the exhaust and all that sort of gubbins that, I mean, let's be honest, you know what exhaust is, you don't need to see me take one off. So once I've done that, I'll pick you back up and I'll try and take you along for the ride on getting all this out, so I can try and show you what we're dealing with one of these 20 valve turbo engines. We shall see. But yeah, leave it with me, get the exhaust off and I'll pick you back up soon. Alrighty then, so we're making steps in the right direction. All the exhaust is now gone apart from the downpipe. I had to cut the cat off because the nuts were so rusty, a socket wouldn't even touch them. So I've gone ahead and taken out all the heat shielding that was up inside here. That's all good to rock. That's exposed all of the subframe. And then round the front I have begun draining all the brake fluid out, so most of that is now out. Detached the power steering line and turned the steering a few times just to try and get out as much fluid as possible. Gone ahead and taken off the aircon pump because the bolts had pretty much worked themselves out anyway, so I've lost that. Next up, this is where I could really do with having a lift. All you lucky souls out there that have got lifts to get underneath your cars, so you're going to have to come underneath the car with me. Right, there we go, we're underneath the car. It's a bit tight underneath here by all accounts. So I now need to remove all this heat shielding. I need to get out the downpipe off the turbo, get the prop shaft out, and after that I think we're pretty much good to start removing the engine. So I'm going to shut up talking and we're going to crack on with that and see what happens. So one less power steering reservoir and one less ABS unit, which is now down there. I've disconnected these obviously. Now if it looks like I don't know what I'm doing, it's because I don't. I've never worked on one of these before, so I'm very much making it up as I go. So I think the next step now, I'm going to have to dive underneath the car and try and disconnect all the downpipe, which is all down there somewhere. So I'd love to take you along for the ride for that, but you are not going to be able to see a damn thing. So what I'll do is I'll take that off and I'll pick you guys back up when I'm back on the top side. Right, and we're back. So last night did not go to plan in the slightest. So basically on these turbos, the downpipe is mounted with 3 bolts. So you got one near the front here, one up the top, and then there's one all the way back round, and it's an absolute chore to get to. So after ages of struggling, trying to get my arms in round there, being a contortionist, trying to get in up through here, getting myself really stressed out, shared a few swear words with the car and everything, as you do. I ended up going home and doing a bit of research, and I searched up how you actually take one of these out, and it turns out you've got to not only dismantle all of that up there anyway, but you've also got to take the subframe out. If I can show you that properly. So you've got to take all of this subframe out, you've got to detach that dog bone mount that goes to the subframe there, and then you've got to take out the prop shaft basically. So it's no wonder I was struggling like a madman last night, but like I say, getting really stressed out. I mean, I could have edited all this and you would never have known, but I figured I might as well enlighten you on my struggles. So 2 of these bolts snapped on the manifold, can't really see them, but 2 of them snapped. One of them come out alright, which is that one, a bit gnarled up on the head. So now, fresh day, fresh head, we're going to tackle it. So what I've got to do is disconnect all of this hub assembly, this side and the next, get all the arms removed and all that malarkey, and yeah, like I say, do the other side, and then I can drop the subframe down and then I can take the prop shaft out. I've already taken the back of the prop shaft out. Now I'm a Ford person, and up until today I've never seen a tool like that before. It's like a multi-spline thing, don't know, seems to be an Audi VAG group type thing. So if you haven't worked on an Audi or a VW or anything like that before and you're planning to, get some of them, because I would have been a bit stuck had it not been for John being here and having stuff like that knocking about. So I think that's probably enough rambling from me. What I want to do is try and position you so you can see what the hell it is I'm doing. It's a bit awkward. It would be nice if I had a lift, because then it'd make life a whole lot easier for showing you guys what I'm up to. So I'll position you somewhere around here, and I'll start unbolting some stuff and do my best to show you what's what and what goes where. So, one caliper removed, one drop link removed, the bracket around the strut that held the brake pipe, and I believe it held an ABS sensor at one point. That's all now gone. Bottom ball joint nut is undone. All I need to do now is undo the hub nut. Hopefully I've got a socket that will fit that, and then I can remove all of this strut section out of the way then. And then it's just a case of removing the lower arm. I might actually have a go at trying to remake them with rose joints and whatnot, but we shall see about that when we get to the point of needing it. So look for a socket that might fit that. Hopefully I've got one, or if I haven't got one, fingers crossed John's got one. And we'll get all this assembly out the way and then move on to the next side. Yep, I had to put the brake caliper back on. And that is one side done. So all the lower arms out, brakes out, hubs out, all of that nonsense down there. As you can see, the lower arm is quite crusty anyway, and the bushing's actually half hanging out. So it was definitely due to be changed. Still need to get the strut out, obviously. Still need to get the drive shaft popped out of the gearbox, but I still need to drain the gearbox yet, so I'll leave that in there for now. So what we need to do next is move on to the other side. So I've pre-lubricated everything on this side with some WD-40, good old WD. And if you're wondering what tools you need for this, you need a fair chunk of tools. Probably not all of them, but that seems to be what I've stockpiled for this job so far. Hopefully this side will go easier, because I've now got it in my head what needs to come off and in which order. So back on the tripod, we'll get this side dismantled. And the other side is done. This side went a lot easier, thankfully. So obviously everything's out now, same as the other side. I've cracked the nuts off, or the bolts, sorry, that hold the subframe up into the bottom of the car. So I just need to crack the other side off and detach the dog bone mount, and I think that is it, and then the whole thing should be able to drop down, hopefully, but we shall see. Right, you'll have to forgive the dodgy camera angles here, but I just thought I'd give you an insight into what's going on, really. So the two bolts that go in the dog bone mount here, they're 16 mils, they're now out. There's two 13 mils, one that goes there, one that goes there, on both sides. They're both out. That holds the steering rack on. And then you've got one 21 mil there and one 21 mil there, two on each side. They actually hold the subframe to the car, so they're now all cracked off. So I'm going to get a jack in underneath the subframe just to support it, wind these bolts right out, and then with any luck nothing else is attached to this subframe and it will just come down. But we shall see. Let's hope for the best. I don't know if you can see it on camera there, but someone right there has put a load of what looks to me like putty around the gearbox. So God help me what that is all about. That might well be hiding a hole. But once we get all this out, I'll investigate that, and hopefully it's just someone trying to hide a leak coming from the gearbox rather than trying to cover up a hole that might be in the gearbox. Dun dun dun! Right, let's get this subframe out, stop jabbering. And voila, it is out. My idea of leaving the steering rack attached to the car didn't quite pan out as well as I'd hoped. it's come along for the journey. So I just need to probably disconnect some of these lines. Now if anyone knows where I can get a new one of these lines from, get in touch, because I am going to have to replace that, because it's a bit moulard, as you can see. So yeah, like I say, next step is just to rip off all the lines, just to try and make this a little bit more compact to store away, and then I'm going to have to hit it with the jet wash at some point and blast off all the crap that's all over it. But now we've finally exposed, see if we can find it this time. There's that horrible nut. I don't know if you can see it on the camera. Where am I pointing you? That's just so awkward. Yeah, so the other nut that I need to get to is right up in the thick of all of that. Don't know if you can see that, but anyway, I shall pull that out, get that out of my way, get the downpipe taken out, disconnect the prop shaft, and then we are good to go. We have a casualty, people. Turns out my steering rack's actually snapped. So it's actually missing the little piece that goes on there. Well, it's not missing, it's actually over there, but it's not attached like it's meant to be. So it looks like I need a new steering rack. So again, anyone got a steering rack for an S3, get in touch. But that is going to be a wrap for this evening, I think. Got everything done that I was hoping to achieve done. Next up is just remove the downpipe, remove the prop shaft, drain the oil out of the engine and gearbox, and then we can drop the engine and gearbox out the bottom, and then it's just a case of taking the back end out and the fuel tank. So we're making good progress. Good progress. So I shall pick you up perhaps tomorrow, perhaps Friday, I don't know yet, we shall see. But until then, see you next time. Right, we're back again. You have to excuse the noise because John's porting the cylinder head round the corner, so air compressor's on the go at the moment. But we've got the front shocks out, they're all sorted. We have got the downpipe out and drain the engine and gearbox fluid. So I think the next step is to probably unbolt the drive shafts and hopefully get this engine dropped down and out, and then we can move on to the back. So I'll get everything set up, put you on a tripod, and we'll start unbolting this engine. So as you can see, engine crane is now attached. So I've tied the seat belt round the bit of inlet manifold, and down through there on the engine mount. Not ideal, but hopefully it'll suffice. We shall see. So before we drop the engine out, we need to take these drive shafts out. So I've got to undo all of these bolts around this drive shaft here. Just in there, using this little bad boy. This is a 10. So I'll undo all of these bolts on this side, all of the bolts on the other side, and then we can start dropping the engine down. So we're starting bolting this engine now, and with any luck that will go according to plan. Right, engine mounts, we've got 2 bolts here on the gearbox, they're 18s, and then we've got 2 18s here on the actual engine mount. So undo them, and all of this lot should then come out the bottom. As if by magic, we now have a 1.8T and gearbox on my trusty little dolly thing. So now it's out, I can actually show you what I was struggling with on this downpipe. It's this bloody stud here. It is an absolute nightmare to get to that when it's in the car. You've got these silly little pipes here, water pipe, which then slides onto that bracket there. I can't take the turbo off still, or I couldn't take it off in the car because there's that silly little bracket there which goes to the block and then is bolted to the block down behind all the transfer case. So it's all a bit of a pain in the arse really, all these hidden little brackets and whatnot. So I'm going to do my absolute best to simplify all of this when it goes back in the car. Try and do away with a lot of the nonsense and make everything that little bit more serviceable. So we now have massive old mess on the floor, part and parcel of taking an engine out. Was a little bit daunting taking that out, I'm not going to lie, trying to do it on my own. I was worried that one side was going to drop and then swing over and knock the car off the jack stands, but it actually went alright. So we've got all the room for activities in here now. Just need to take out the booster, take out all the brake pipes, take out the gearbox mount, engine mount, strut brace, take out the gear selector cables and the gear selector in the car. I think after that we're pretty much said and done in the engine bay and up front. Then we can move on to the fuel tank and back end. So I'm going to go home, go and have a bit of dinner because I'm starving, and hopefully I'll get back down there shortly and get all that stuff taken out, but play it by ear on that one. So either way, I'm going to have to come back down there and clear up my mess because it's an absolute tip in here at the moment. So be back with you soon hopefully. And we're back and Dean is here. We've got some helping hands for tonight. Hey. Right, it is time to strip this engine bay out and strip all the back part of this car down. Get all that clobber out from underneath there and all that clobber out from underneath at the back there, and then we're golden. So set you up again on the tripods and get cracking on that. Here we have it, the rear assembly. So we need to take off this arm, take the drive shaft out, disconnect the anti-roll bar, take the shock out, take the brake caliper off, remove the spring, basically detach every single part of this, and then we can drop the subframe out after that. Right, Dean's doing the other side, I'm going to do this side. Hopefully it won't take too long.
No, I'm sure you'll catch me up.
Tonight has not gone to plan, people. This has been a struggle like no other. Everything's seized, everything's rusty, everything is just a bit of a nightmare. So managed to get brake caliper off after beating the living daylights out of it because it was seized onto the brake disc. Lower arm is off, drive shaft out. Same again on Dean's side. That's pretty much all we've managed to really do tonight because it's just been a nightmare fighting everything. So Friday I'll come back down it and we'll push on a bit more. Right, sorry folks, I didn't take you along for the last bit of the journey. There was a dyno session going on just the other side of that wall the other day when I was down here, and multiple people roaming around, and to be honest I've spent way too much time trying to work around the camera. It's kind of been slowing me up, so I've just cracked on, got it done. And this is what we're left with. And yes, before anyone says, I did spend way too much time organising this just for a thumbnail. But anyway, getting back to it. obviously all the rear end is now out. Everything's all crusty, scabby, horrible, and a couple of bits are still actually stuck, so I can't actually get this carrier off at the moment because the bottom bolt is completely stuck. So what I'm going to do before I leave tonight, I'm going to douse it in WD-40, and then tomorrow hopefully I'm going to come back down, put some heat on it, and with any luck I can then get it out. Again, I think it's this control arm that's still currently stuck. I need to douse these bolts going through the front trailing arm and then try and get them out as well. So yeah, that's where we're at with that, but I'll do all that kind of stuff in my own time. I don't need to show you all of that, it's all very much self-explanatory really. The rear subframe, I need to lose these mounts. Apparently I can get some new ones, so I'm looking to replace all of them. Subframe will get blasted, powder coated. Rear anti-roll bar is probably just going to go in the bin. I need to find a Golf R32 rear anti-roll bar. So if you've got one of them, or you know anyone that's got one of them for sale, let us know, because I'd like to get metal work together before I send anything off the powder coat, so it can all just get done in one hit. The control arms, I found someone that does replacements, adjustable replacements, so I'm going to put them on the shopping list. Trailing arm, now I found a poly bush to go in the front of the trailing arm, so that's fine, but I can't find anything for the rear, upper and lower trailing arm where the control arm bolts to it. So I don't know if anyone actually supplies them or if they're just something that needs to be standard, but if you know different and you know someone that does a poly bush variant for that, then let us know, because I'm struggling. So yeah, where was I? Yeah, obviously rear trailing arms all need to be stripped back, powder coated. These mounts, I don't know if they're too far gone or if I just need to buy new ones, because they're pretty crusty to be honest, and quite a bit of materials flaking off of them, so I might need to get replacements for that. I'm hoping the trailing arms are alright, but again they are quite crusty, quite rank. I don't know if they're going to come up very well after sandblasting. Rear brakes are obviously going in the bin, because one, they're seized, and two, I'd like to find some sort of upgrade for that. Diff mounts are going to be polybushed. Obviously all of this is going to be powder coated. I want to try and find a rebuild kit for the rear diff, so I can take it all apart, refresh it all and make it as good as new, or as near as damn it. I do however seem to be missing a breather that goes in there, so if anyone's got that breather part, let us know, because I need it, because now I'm worried that a ton of stuff's already gone in that. So I'll take that up before I go. Yeah, I think that does us for the back. So obviously rear shocks are going in the bin, and the springs, get something a bit more track orientated. Prop shaft I will be stripping back and painting. That's all good. I think these I think they're called donuts, but I need the front and rear one, because all inside that little bit there, all the rubber's cracked and just gone a bit horrible, so try and get new ones of them. I'm sure someone said a little while ago on one of the groups that there's a billet version for the back, but I don't know if there's one for the front, so I need to look into that. But moving on to the front shocks are going in the bin. If you've been watching for a while, you know all about this, but my front strut tops sit proud of the wing, and I need to do a custom front coilover kit and do some custom work there. So that's the plan for that. Front drive shafts again, clean them up, paint them. Front brakes, they will probably be going in the bin, because ideally I'd like to find something that's a bit more manly and a bit more beefy for track use. So ideally something like an AP Racing or Brembo 4-pot, 6-pot setup. Don't know. I'm ideally aiming for 17-inch wheels. So I think my maximum is probably going to be like a 330mm front brake disc, I think, off the top of my head. But I've got some time to figure that out anyway. Front hubs, again, strip them back, powder coat them or paint them. Not too sure yet. Replace the bearings. Now the front arms, I think I said earlier in the video, I'm in debate with myself at the moment about trying to make some custom tubular ones with rose joints, just so I've got some adjustability on camber and all that lot. But yeah, we'll play that one by ear for now. When we get to that stage, I'll think of something. Or if you know of anyone that sells an adjustable front arm setup off the shelf, let me know and I'll have a look into them. It might save me quite a bit of time. Onto the engine. Obviously all the gearbox is manky as all hell, so I need to clean all that off. Here we go, look. Dodgy actuator. It looks like something from bloody B&Q holding that actuator on. But all of that's going in the bin anyway. Turbo, manifold, gone. Look at the size of this thing. It is absolutely puny, this manifold. It looks like something that should be on a Nissan Micra. So that's going in the bin. I think this might be the time that I have a go at making my first manifold. Now ideally, obviously this sits between obviously the engine and the bulkhead, and I want to free up the space and try and keep the heat away from the brake setup, which is sort of around here somewhere. So I want to try and make my own sidewinder manifold, which will then place the turbo over the gearbox. How well that's going to go remains to be seen. I've never made a manifold before in my life, so that could possibly get very expensive very quickly. But I'm going to have a go nevertheless. Obviously engine's all going to be stripped down, forged. I'm going to, apparently this, oh god, is it Supertech or something like that, is the sort of valve train stuff to go for, springs and retainers and all that, so that's going to be the ticket for that. Obviously I don't know if I've highlighted this before, but the inlet manifold is a big issue right now. So obviously with all that engine sitting further forward than a normal Escort, I've had to cut all of this out of my slam panel, and I don't want to leave it like that. So I'm thinking either lop the runners off a bit further back and try and get that closer in towards the engine, or go for a custom inlet manifold, move the alternator down to where the aircon compressor used to be, move the dipstick closer to the engine, make a new custom inlet manifold, a lot like the Skunk 2 one that goes on the Honda K series engine. So it's a bit like an oblong shape, and then has the throttle body down here, because then it just makes life a bit easier for plumbing in boost pipes and whatnot, because I'm going to either go left or right. But again, that's a ways off. I don't really need to think too much about that at the moment. Going back to the engine bay, still got a few things left in here. Still got the sound deadening, brake pipes, clutch line, booster and servo, so I'll take all that out in my own time, along with the strut brace. You guys don't need to see all that. Still got flexies in there for the brakes, so all that'll be gone soon. Power steering lines are a bit crusty. I don't know if I've showed you these before, but they're really rot, and it's actually kinked there anyway. So I'm not going to even attempt to reuse these, because I know what will happen. I'll fit them and they'll start leaking straight away. So my plan of attack for this again is go for like a custom setup. So I've got a banjo here, so I want to get some, ideally some banjos that adapt to an AN6 or an AN8 line, and then run something like a Mocal oil cooler to actually cool the power steering, rather than having all this plumbing just routed everywhere in front of the engine. So that's another thing I need to look into. But moving on from that, and then we get the front end stuff. So we've got the subframe there, again blasted, powder coated. I need a polybush kit for the dog bone mount, so I'll get that sorted out at some point. And earlier someone said that I can get a 21mm Audi TT V6 front anti-roll bar. So again, if you've got one of them, you know someone that's got one of them that's selling it, let us know, because again I'd like to get that before I send everything off to powder coat. Obviously the steering rack, I need to get a replacement because it's broken. Someone's told me that Seat Cupra has a quick rack, and it does fit, so I'm probably going to look into that a little bit more and possibly go down that road. Rear brakes going in the bin. I'd like to find some sort of uprated setup to go in its place, and I've just recently seen today, as it goes, someone does an aftermarket gear shifter setup, and it's got like a billet sort of mounting thing, and it actually looks quite trick. So I'm going to look into that a bit more tonight when I'm sitting down at the computer and see what we can find out about that. Same again with engine mounts and gearbox mounts. I want to see if I can get replacements for these. Ideally something aftermarket, something that looks a bit nicer, but again, right now I don't know if that's an option. Obviously a box of little random bits and bobs, all my bagged and tagged bolts, so I know where they go back into. So yeah, I think that's you up to speed now, and pretty much the end of this episode really. So I'm going to tidy up all this stuff that I've just spent ages putting out for a thumbnail, and go home and start editing this video. So yeah, if you've made it through all my rambling for the last 10 or so minutes or whatever, then fair play to you. I probably wouldn't have listened to me talking for that long. But yeah, hopefully you join me for the next one, where I'm aiming to get this thing bolted to the rollover jig, and then we can flip it on its side and I can show you all the crusty stuff I've found underneath. So yeah, lots to look forward to. But for now, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. If you haven't, then give us a sub. Don't cost you nothing. And hopefully I'll see you on the next one. So have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time. Peace.